and welcome you all here this afternoon. A special welcome to Kelly Shanks, the CE of Sport Manawatu, and of course Raylene, who's the Community Connector for Sport Tararua. So welcome to both of you. Let's open the meeting with a prayer. We seek your guidance and wisdom for our community. Grant us discernment as we make decisions that impact the lives of those around us. Help us to seek your will above all else, trusting in your divine plan. Illuminate our minds with knowledge and understanding, that we may navigate the complexities of life with grace and humility. We thank you, Lord, for your unveiling wisdom and for the guidance you provide each step of the way. We say this in Lord's name. Amen. Thank you. We'll start with apologies. So we have apologies from Councillor Gilmore, Councillor Petty-Weber and Councillor Sutherland. We haven't heard from Naoma, but that possibly could be a late apology. Thank you. Could somebody please move the apologies be accepted? Thank you, Councillor Sharon, second, and Councillor Peter. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Now, the public forum, unfortunately, Hatahone St John have cancelled today. This is the second time it's happened, which is a bit disappointing because I was really quite keen to get a bit of an update on where things are at, particularly with the Pahiatua ambulance station. However, I swung by there on my way today and it's just heartening to see that they're well above ground now. So all of that foundation work, which was pretty massive, that had to be done because of the soil types there, that's all completed, and they are now got the concrete chucks there pouring all the hard surface. So they're really, really getting on with it. So he has promised me he'll come to the next meeting. The station will be up and open before we get him, I think. So, but anyway, that's how it is, and we can't change that. And also the presentation, item 4.1, the update on Te Pai Oranga o Ruahine o Tararua Iwi Māori Partnership Board Community Health Plan. I did invite the CE of the organisation on the recommendation of Oriana Pawai, but I didn't actually hear back from her. So that's a little bit disheartening. So we were hoping, I knew there would be some quite interesting questions about the document that we got sent to us so that we were prepared and ready to go. So it's going to be a fairly short meeting today, I would suggest. I do apologise for that. Are there any notifications of items not on the agenda? There being none. You're right, Peter? Oh, Peter? Microphone.
Brief discussion on replacement apparatus for Fountain Square. Okay. Oh, sorry.
Are you happy to have that discussed later in the agenda? Is that okay? Perhaps we'll do that after the management report?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, thanks, Peter. Okay, then no other items that are not on the agenda. Any conflicts of interest? There being none, we'll move on to the confirmation of the last minutes. We'll go through those page by page, please. So page 5. Page 6, page 7. Would somebody please move that these are a true and correct record of that meeting? Thank you, Councillor Peter. Second to Councillor Mike. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. So now the perfect timing. We'll call on the Sport Tararua report, please. Would you ladies like to come up to the table? Just to point out to you too that when you speak, you need to turn the microphone on and you need to turn it off as well. So I'll turn mine off so that you start. So welcome, Kelly and Raylene.
Kia ora. Thanks very much for having us here today. I'll take the report as read and take any questions. I do just want to acknowledge Raylene and starting in that position, and Hinakawa is away on maternity leave and has had a little baby girl and doing really fantastic, which is lovely. So we're very excited to have Raylene on board and just acknowledging the fantastic Tararua Sports Awards which were run and will obviously be fully in the next report, but just to say thank you to the ongoing support that elected members give, and all your support in that. It was great to have some of you there on the evening to celebrate in that space. So. The only other thing I will say is that I've got a principal cluster meeting coming up, and one of the topics I will be bringing up at that is just around the challenges that the high school continue to face in regards to transport and getting sports students over to take part in the sports over in Palmerston North, because obviously they're normally run there, and it is a big drain on the high schools for transport. So that is something that we are working on.
Thank you, Kelly. Now we'll take the report as read. Would you like to go through it page by page, or should we just open for any questions? Anybody have any questions on the report? Thank you, Councillor Peter.
Thank you, Chair Allison. I didn't quite pick up your last comment then about secondary school transport. Is that a major issue, getting kids? Does not the Ministry of Education provide for that?
Through you, Chair. Yes, great question. No, unfortunately not. So there is a rural travel fund, but it is a really small fund, and it gets used up very quickly, and it is hugely over subscribed. So the challenge being that obviously there's an additional cost for rural schools to take part in sport. From an equity lens, I would say, if you look at it, so Boys High, Fielding Boys High, they can all take part in sports because they're mainly run at Arena Manawatu, for example, or at the hockey turfs over in Palmerston. So to send kids from the high schools here over is quite a lot of time and at a big cost, and that comes to the school. It's not covered by anybody else, so it's parents or the schools actually paying for that to get them over. So it is actually quite a big inequity and an additional cost for rural schools to be able to take part in sports. So what happens there then is the top teams are sort of the ones that are going over, but actually those other students who would like to take part are then not able to, because the school can't fund all the kids that would like to go and take part in these teams to actually have teams. Does that answer your question?
Councillor Sharon.
Alison, I have a couple of questions if that's okay. Firstly, fantastic report. Great to have you on board, Raylene. I'm curious to delve a little bit into the green prescription program. You've noted there between October and March there were 30 clients referred or self-referred. I'm not sure if that was up or down on previous periods. I might have missed that comparison, but the main reason I wanted to ask, Raylene, was with what's happening with access to GPs and issues around our primary health services, are you seeing more people self-refer, or are the numbers tracking down because of that lack of formal access, I guess, through the...
Thanks, Sharon. Just for example, I went to the Hurua Day at Rangatane, and that day I got 12 referrals. Wow. For green prescription. So I don't actually run the program.
Right.
Someone comes over from Sport Manawatu and delivers it, but I can get people to refer to them. So yeah, it probably was a bigger month than normal, but I don't have the stats on what they were previously. Sorry.
No, that's all good. I was also very pleased to see that 63% of those who had to go at the gym actually moved on, and that's one of the benefits of that program that was always very underutilised in my view, was that instead of seeing it as a one-off, actually build that activity into your lifestyle. I have one further question, Chair Allison. It's related to your role and your title, Raylene. I was introduced to a community connector at Think Haora on Monday. Do the community connectors all working together, or is it a different network that you work within?
I can kind of answer that. I am networking and trying to get... so last night I was asked by Women's Refuge whether I could join their they have a committee
Yes.
that meet up at Heartlands in Paitoa once a month, and they've asked if I will come along to that to be with all the other sport agencies in Paitoa. But I need to find what they do up in Dannyvert to try and connect that way as well.
So as further to that, sorry, Chair Ellison, are you part of the strengthening?
No, that's what I think
That,
it is.
that's something you
that's
should
what-
perhaps tap into
yeah,
then, Raylene.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
that's
would
what
give
I think
you
it
the.
was that they were talking about.
It
to me last
probably
night.
would have been one of the wings of it, but it would be worth approaching because there are groups within that you would have abilities to open doors or promote different things through. So that's hosted and funded through Taradora Reap. So a phone call to Lindley at the front desk would put you in touch with that. Thank you, Chair Ellison. Thanks, Raylene.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you, ladies. Actually, in addition to that, that Strengthening Families group is pretty much all your NGOs and your government agencies are all there under one roof. So it's a good networking opportunity, and that's pretty much what it is a networking opportunity. So certainly good contacts. Thank you. Okay, so any further questions? Peter?
Madam Chair, just for a point of clarification that someone might be able to help me with. Community Connector, that's a sort of a new title that's come up recently when you were appointed. Never heard it before. Is that like a chief financial officer or a marketing manager? Is it an accepted description for a type of activity or? Sorry.
Yeah, good question. Yes, I guess it's more resonates with the role around that it is about looking and connecting in with the groups that already exist, because the community already have lots of answers, and so rather than duplicating, it is actually looking at what the needs of the community are and then connecting them to the right mechanisms, if that makes sense, and if you take it in a literal term, and acknowledging that we can't do this alone, so we can only do it through connection. So community connection enables play, rec and sport to happen. Does that?
Thanks, Kelly. Just in addition to that, also, yes, it's certainly not a bus from Wellington to Lower Hutt, but I see it also as a connector for railing between the different towns as well, those individual communities as well. So I think it's quite an appropriate name. Thank you, Mayor Tracy.
Thanks, Chair Ellison. I just wondered if you could remind me, the Tū Manawa Fund that Taurua District Council was a recipient of $1,000. What program were we involved in? Sorry, I may have forgotten that.
From my understanding, it was for the play trailer, extra equipment for the play trailer. Yeah,
Thank you.
that was before my time, yeah.
Would it be helpful to have maybe just another column there with just a little description of what those were? Yeah, we can make sure that we do that for the next report.
Just on that, Mayor Tracy, just like the one that I've recently done is the Taurua Aquatic Community Trust. That was for a triathlon that they were holding. They didn't have a lot of numbers to start with. We came along and provided them Te Manawa funding, and their participation rates were huge. Yeah, from what they had, because we made it a free event. Yeah, for everyone. There was no barriers for anyone.
Thanks, Chair Ellison. I just wondered, when you're talking about trends, one of the things that I've seen, popping up more and more of late is people playing with sport with headphones or earphones in. Do you do any sort of safety talks around some of the risks with that?
That's a fascinating question. No, we don't. Definitely clubs do, in the sense of if it's an event in particular, so especially if it's something like a running event or anything that's using footpaths or roadways, then absolutely. But I can get back to you on that, because that is an interesting point.
Councillor Peter.
Not a question, Chair Ellison, but a comment. I was fortunate enough to go to the Taurua Sports Awards a couple of weeks ago, and I was quite taken with the the talent that was, particularly the junior sports people, any one of those 3 or 4 could have won it. But it was quite heartening to see the ability of some of our local young sports people. Good to see.
Absolutely a huge. I love the diversity of the different sports as well as the junior category was so strong, so strong. It's lovely to see the next generation coming through. You're certainly batting well above your average for your time, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for that, Kelly. Yes, it's certainly this district really is really into sport, and it is thanks to the likes of Sport Manawatu and Sport Tararua that's so strong, I think. And, you know, we were always a little concerned in the south that, you know, when your connector was in the north, we didn't see a lot of them down there, but that has changed quite dramatically over the last 6 or 7 years, and we do see a lot of interaction, so it's really great. Thank you. Councillor Steve?
Yeah, I'd just like to say we're lucky we've got this vessel, the way you guys are driving it, because I know Mayor Tracy was mentioning, through you, Chair, Mayor Tracy mentioned about the kids with earphones and that, but most kids, if you want to seek something out, I mean, they'll be there. And that's what I found with most people that want to be achievers. They've got to achieve, it's tattooed on their forehead when they arrive. And, you know, yeah, the kids, they'll always have their headphones in and all that, but I like the way what you're showing them as an alternative route, and the working tools are there. I hope we get rid of this cost thing for travel, because to me that's an investment. It's not a cost, it's an investment. So I don't know how we can pull a rabbit out of the hat, but if we have a rabbit, we'll try and get it caught and give it to you.
Thanks, Councillor Steve. Are there any further questions? There being none, would you like to move the adoption of your report? Thanks, Mayor Tracy. Seconded, Councillor Steve. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you, ladies.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Safe drive home. Mind the roadworks. Yeah. Right, so we'll move on now to, I presume we're the management report, is it? Next. Agenda. Yeah. So Carter, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Alison. So I take the report as read. I would like to highlight something that the team have done, which is a bit different this time, and it's the survey of funeral directors. So overall, the results are satisfactory in my opinion. There's always room for improvements, obviously, but overall I think the results were positive. We continue maintaining our assets, our buildings, our pensioner housing, so tending to the CRMs, no major changes there. Please do interrupt me if you have any questions. Yes, sure. Yeah, yeah.
And if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to ask a question, Carter, about it's actually item 3.1 let me go back. 3.1.5. How did you know that, Councillor Johnson? So can we do a bit of a dive into what is happening there at the Mangatonoka Cemetery regarding the decorations on the plots? Because we had some very robust debate and discussion through the adoption of the bylaw, and I thought that we'd made it fairly clear that we're going to be some guidelines provided and some restrictions placed. So can you just provide a bit more context? I've been up at the cemetery on occasions and noticed huge big families around certain areas and wondered, you know, I guess because it is such a sensitive topic, what are some of the issues that have arisen that have raised the risk in terms of our officers to actually need to do something more. Are you able to?
Through you, Chair Alison. Yes, so as you mentioned, this is a very sensitive topic, and what's been happening is contractors have been raising issues around the maintenance of the plots. So digging new graves, maintaining them, and when you have a lot of decorations, it is very hard to maintain to a certain standards. They're not really allowed to touch anything or move anything, so it's becoming to some extent a health and safety hazard in some situations because the decorations are just overboard. So the way we approached it is we go into work with the funeral directors to see how we can approach the families, certain families, and see how we can get them to understand the risks around having all these decorations. There are areas where they can have the decorations, so we're not saying you remove or everything that you have, but we really are going to try and work with the families as much as we can and reach out through the funeral directors as well to make sure that we maintain a certain standards in our cemetery. Some of the cases are very sensitive, so we really are treading really carefully. So no comms have gone out yet. We're still just working through. We've got pretty much the comms plan around it, but we're just taking it slowly and carefully. So really the main issues around the health and safety risks, the maintenance of the graves is becoming in some areas really hard.
For clarification then, Carter, is it because the decorations are extending into the grass part, or are they creating the hazard around the headstone or the concrete berm that they're supposed to sit on?
Through you, Charlie, so a bit of both really. It's sometimes it's extending to the next plot, so there isn't enough space to work. Sometimes they have to go around the whole plot to do some maintenance, and it's yeah.
Thanks, Brian.
Through you, Chair Alison, one of the big difficulties is that you can't, and Carter did just touch on it then, was you can't dig another grave next to it, because having witnessed how they dig the hole, actually the area could be anywhere from that side of that desk to Steve's side and the plot in the middle, so they've got to lift and put the dirt across two other plots, so effectively you can't dig there. So it is removing the ability to do that, and because clearly we would cause quite a bit of damage to the ones next to it. So that's one of the bigger, one of the issues and the other ones the card has highlighted. Just hand moles rather than just having to get out. Rather than doing things quicker, it's taken a lot more time, which obviously pushes costs up as well.
Thanks, Brian. Councillor Peter, you had a comment?
Yes. I remember when we discussed these decorated plots, we discussed it at some length, and I remember at the time thinking this is going to be a nightmare. And it's obviously proved to be. I think it's something we're going to have to relook at as to whether you limit the area that can be decorated. If it's a lawn cemetery, it's a lawn cemetery. It's only the berm and the headstone area that can be used for decoration, in my view. But I think it needs review.
Thanks, Councillor Peter. Yeah, for me it's, particularly in Mangatanoka, it's generally the graves of young children or teenagers that are the most decorated like that. Have there been any discussions with any of our neighbours like Central Hawke's Bay about how they, because I'm sure it happens everywhere, and how they handled it? Maybe there could be some help there in a way to, because it's so sensitive, you know, when you're talking about victims of suicide and you know, family tragedies, it's...
Through Chair Alison, yes, I do. I recall we looked into this, feels like 2-3 years ago, and one of the ways of sort of managing going forward is be really clear what you can and can't do at the start to prevent it from happening in the first place. And then there was discussions around whether or not these plots would be allowed at a premium price because of the ongoing and selected in an area. And I know some cemeteries will have that in one area, but you obviously would need to pay more for that as well. So I think a lot of the cemeteries now, though, because even the land's becoming a bit of a premium, is trying to restrict all that totally because of this ongoing, and making it clear to the families when they go through that process, which is never easy to say. Unfortunately, you can't do that here. You know, but I know Mangatanuga is probably is our worst cemetery in terms of that, and they're not all in one area. They've spread at different areas. There was quite a bit of a media attention around this as well. I'm looking at Matt Tracy to remember some of the discussions. Some of it can be in the past, you know, potentially there have been gangs sort of related that do this as well. So it's a very sensitive, but also it could potentially be, you know, more than just a sense of a manager in terms of health and safety as well. So it is tricky, very tricky.
Thank you, Brian. Yes, I recall at the time, you know, we were asked as counsellors how we felt about actually approaching families, and at the beginning I thought, oh yes, and then when push came to shove, I just couldn't do it, particularly with one who was very close to us. And I wonder now, though, we are now probably another 10 years down the track from that, whether that softens as time goes by. I don't know whether it would be different now. And looking at what's on those graves too relate to young children or early teens, and they would now be in their 20s and 30s. Whether that would make, I don't know. It's just a really touchy subject. Councillor Sharon?
Chair Ellison, you've indicated in the comment, Carter, that you're keen to work through the funeral directors. I mean, that's the chance to do the education and the prevention of this happening. Any discussions with them to date, and how have they been responding to?
Through you, Chair Alison, yes, we've talked to Tracy Friend and to Monarch Funeral, and they are willing to help. In fact, they were very willing to help us navigate through this. They suggested that's probably the best ways to go through them and do that. The challenge we have is some of the families we don't have next of kin. So again, going through the funeral directors, we might be able to identify, the person to, or the next of kin have, deceased since, and so we might get a situation where we are struggling to find, or they live outside of the district, or
Thanks, Carter. Prior to your time, we had a very intense project in Mangatanuga when the Columbarium Wall collapsed in a storm, and we had to locate 124 families. And Raylene and I and Tracy and Shirley and about 6 of us, it's amazing what you can find when you dig deep enough. So there could be opportunities there where what we did, of course, was we focused on first and foremost male names, because men don't change their surnames, so they're often easier to find. Brian was very helpful in finding one for us in Levin through the police. So there were ways and means. So whether there's an opportunity there to do a bit of a project around that, just a thought. Yeah, Tracy, yeah.
Thanks, Chair Alison. And just on the 3.1.4, just above, the facilities team are working with the Friends of the Cemeteries in the different towns, which is fantastic. I just noted we also have the New Zealand Remembrance Army that work with the war graves there. If you need that contact, that might be great to catch up there as well.
Thanks, Mayor Tracy. Are there any? Councillor Peter.
Same subject, but 3.2.3 if we progress to there. Just perhaps an update on Hockey Park as to where things are at. 3.2.3.
Through you, Chair Alison, it's pretty much the update is that the team are working, or Kate is working with the club to process the lease. That's the update. I can get back to you with estimated time frames or dates or what, but yeah. The lease I haven't seen the lease yet. Normally, I get shown the lease and I think it gets signed by Matt Tracy. And is it Matt Tracy you get to sign the lease? Is that right? Yeah. I haven't seen it yet.
Thank you, Carter. Any further questions on that? Should we move on? I'm just going page right there.
Thank you, Chair Alison. So 3.3.3, we had, I think you would remember this from the workshop for the pensioner housing, so an audit, a random audit on our pensioner housing on the 3 units, and very minor updates were required, but other than that, we're doing quite well in our pensioner housing. So you've got all the trends and the stats about our CRMs and public conveniences, parks and reserves. Okay, so I'll give you an update about the Pahiatua tree. Yeah. We have yesterday signed, we had to follow a really strict process in order to be able to approve the work to go ahead and remove the tree. And the process included a letter that needed to be written by the facilities coordinator or manager. And so that was done yesterday. The contractors are booked for next week, I believe. We've got everything lined up to go ahead. I don't have the exact date because I'm really waiting for the contractor who's Tree Smart to just pretty much confirm the date when they can carry out the work. We haven't really done any comms around it, but we will before we carry out the work. But it should be done fairly soon, within the next week or two.
Oh, thanks for that update, Carter. That's really heartening to know, yes, and I think it was very wise holding off on any public announcement until closer to the actual date. And it hasn't been much discussed in the community either in the last couple of weeks, so I'll cover that off at Explore Pahiatua. I actually did do a report, but I'll follow up with that tonight. Is there any other questions on there? You're right, Carter.
Thank you, Chair Alison. So we have some information around camping grounds.
Before you get on to camping grounds, 3.8.4, just above that, somebody that's been trespassed from the Hopelands Reserve and Karanui Road Reserve. The Hopelands Reserve, is that the reserve that as you cross the bridge at Manawatu River at Hopelands there, you turn right and it's about 100 metres along on the right, that little spot there?
I can answer that. Yeah, that is it. Is it? There were complaints coming from people at Kumaroa about some people who were living there, and I think that's why it was actioned. Do you have any knowledge on that, Brian? So who would have done that?
It would have been through a regulatory team. Yeah.
Thanks, Chair Ellison. Just on the same subject and point, I guess when council have these, do we have a sort of a coordinated place that we store this data so that we can monitor, potential homelessness and issues within the community, or is it just dealt on a case-by-case basis by regulatory?
You will have, through you, Chair Alison, I will have to check that. I couldn't really say for sure because it's dealt with by the regulatory team. I don't know whether they have a system of recording all that or whether it's a case by case. If it is case by case, it is still recorded somewhere. It's just a matter of having an overview of what's yeah. But I can double check that with the regulatory team. Yeah.
Thanks, Carter. We must move on now. Thank you.
An update on the Section 17A reviews for camping grounds and swimming pools. So we are tracking really well against the recommendations made in the reports, and Fontaine is working through all the recommendations. So she's prioritised swimming pools because of the season, because they were closing down first. But we are on a good, so we're working through all the recommendations that have been outlined in the Section 17A reviews for birth activities. We don't really have any challenges, so it's been going really well. The operators have been understanding, they've been willing to work with TDC. We're putting processes in place. We are also liaising with or working within council, for example, with the regulatory team to see what else we can put in place. We're working with the health officer for our swimming pools. We're working with the regulatory team, I can't remember who, for the camping grounds, for example, to have some exemptions. So we are really collaborating within council and with the operators to make sure those recommendations are achieved or are done within the 12 months that we have promised to do.
Thanks for that, Carter. Do you mind if we go back to 3.11.2, please? The chart of attendances at swimming pools. I was a little curious about the numbers in Pahiatua. They equal more than the town's entire population. And I understand that the schools definitely have been using it in February, but January, it was very seldom open because the weather was just all over the place. And the count's even higher than Splash, which I found a bit. I thought maybe there's a revolving gate that's malfunctioning. Thanks.
All I can say is that these are the figures that we get from the operators, and hence why we've done the Section 17A reviews, because we do need to have more accurate data. We question the data we get, but unfortunately we really haven't got any control over it. We sometimes have the same questions you have, and yeah.
Oh, thanks, Carter. I did wonder about that because, I mean, Danny Burke's population is probably nearly twice that of Pahiatua. So, and Woodville Pool, of course, is open at the same time. So the schools up there use that one. So, yeah, I totally understand that. And that will be resolved when we get our new pool. Councillor Sharon.
Thanks, Chair Ellison. Can I take you back to 3.10.2, which is around campgrounds? Carter, you've made a comment in there, and I hear you saying that you're working towards making sure the recommendations are completed within the year. But I remember in our original setting of the background that we had from the consultant that they were recommending that Woodville Campground get deregistered. And I see your comment there that instead you've chosen to apply for a certificate of exemption. What's the difference between deregistering and the certificate of exemption, please?
Through you, Chair Alison, my understanding is that an exemption will help us continue to deliver the service. Deregistering would be not continuing with the service.
Councillor Steve, you have a question?
Yeah, I've got two. just you jumped quick, so I just want to go back. About 3 or 4 meetings ago, I asked you about the flying fox at Northwood. Did you get me an answer on that, please? Well, it was decommissioned, and so it was decommissioned, but nobody had, because Paeatua still got one. So I'm just trying to enhance it because there's so many people stop at Northwood with the setup there. That's the first question, and the second question, So what is those numbers about the pool? Because if that is obviously it's a mistake. So I would hope to think it's a mistake. Otherwise, if you take that to its logical conclusion, they'll go to 18,000 when they've got it covered in one. But yeah. So when you say you don't know the people giving you the data, you must know the people.
Through you, Chair Alison. So the data we received, because so far, as it has been outlined before through the 17A reviews, TDC has been hands-off with the swimming pools. So we haven't really, we don't know the people because we pretty much rely on the operators to deliver the full service. So what we have been presenting here is pretty much just the data we get from the operators. And you know, we do question the data, but
It's supplementary, because it wouldn't be in their interest to put figures in that aren't correct for anyone. And just going back to the other one about the update on the Northwood flying fox, did you have any luck with that?
through your Chair, Alison. So I don't believe they just make up the data. What I think happens is the way they collect the data is probably not a satisfactory way or up to standards. We don't really know how they collect this data.
Thanks, Carter. Just a point of clarification. So the Pahiatua Swimming Club literally manage the pool. And in the summertime, they don't charge for its use. So there's no sort of revenue that you could kind of calculate it off against to see whether or not it was, so it is quite difficult. So I don't know how that's happened because I think there's mainly one manager that's there pretty much the whole time, and then they've got their lifeguards and things. But apart from that, there's no real connection to council. Thanks.
Through your Chair, Alison, about the Northwood flying fox. So it has been decommissioned for, I think it was a health and safety hazard or health and safety reasons. That's why it was decommissioned. In terms of replacing it, the way they work out the plan to replace or renew is that they work with the community to understand where the need is, and then they prioritise that. So I don't really know where that particular flying fox is at, or whether it is going to be replaced with something else or not. I will go back to the facilities team and just double check around that what's happening with it.
Yeah, just supplementary to that, because as you know, that's my turf over in Northwood. If it's a point of doing a fundraiser for the Northwood people, for the Northwood kids, etc., well, we can steer that way, you see what I'm saying? If that needs to be part of it, or if there is funding for the Northwood community. That's the core of the question, please.
Councillor Peter.
Thanks, Chair Ellison. Just on that same subject, the current government appears to be reviewing health and safety issues with a view to using logic instead of eliminate all possible risk sort of attitudes that has been the case in the past. But things like I realised that a flying fox, you could bruise your little finger if you fell off it. I mean, so they're bad news. Certainly when I was younger, we used to put up flying foxes every scout camp we went to, from the nearest cliff over a river and so on. It was great fun. I'd hate to think that we can't use flying foxes because somebody may fall off and get hurt. Similarly with, you've heard me say it before, the giant slide in the park in Woodville was taken down because it was deemed unsafe. Somebody could fall off, it's too high. But it was a rite of passage thing. Or you ask any kid that grew up in Woodville, it was they'd climb up that ladder 3 or 4 times and then climb down again because they're too scared to go down. But eventually they'd do it, and they'd say, yes, I've done it. But that's too dangerous. Don't know whether anybody ever fell off it, or even if they did they hurt themselves. The swings, the big swings, removed, health and safety. Yeah, but that's a discussion we're going to have a little later on. But I'd like to think that we're a bit careful. We'll just wait till the government comes out and we get a bit of clarity on what is deemed dangerous on some of this stuff before we eliminate everything that could possibly hurt everybody and we end up with nothing, because that's the way we're heading.
Thanks, Councillor Peter. You're up to you.
Thank you, Chair Alison. So one thing I would just mention that we do conditions assessment of all our assets in the playgrounds, and that's how the certain assets are determined to be health and safety hazards and need to be replaced, and that's how they are prioritised. And we do have a plan of those assets that need to be replaced ASAP versus ones that could last a bit longer. And yeah.
Thank you. Just could I ask, who assesses the asset? Don't tell me it's a purveyor of park equipment.
Through you, Chair Franklin. The facilities officers do assessments, and we do an audit check. I don't know for sure whether it's yearly or not, but we do an audit check on our playgrounds as well, just to make sure that they are compliant. But the conditions assessment is done regularly by the officers, by the facilities officers.
Sorry, who does it?
Internally, by facilities team.
Through you, Chair, I think there's 2 things. One is basically to the standard, but the others is deterioration that becomes unsafe. So, there may be the wires fraying or the seats broken. So those are the condition assessments. Problem we have at the moment is that there is standards, government standards, that we should be adhering to. Now, we haven't gone ahead out and changed all of our playground equipment to bring it up to standard, else we'd close down all our parks. So when a specific equipment comes because of a condition, not because it's necessarily because it's a wooden seesaw rather than a metal seesaw, it's probably because people sitting on and getting splinters, that becomes actual. So they're getting a bit older. In terms of the health and safety changes of the government, so I think a big focus on that is small business. So not so much the standards for the equipment, but the health and standards, the level of health and safety, small business, and the investment that's required for small businesses that almost have to have the same health and safety requirements as those that are higher risk, which is costing these small businesses. So I don't think that will impact the safety equipment, but I guess the message we hear it is common sense, please, is probably what we're thinking. If something has, still functional and it's not going to snap, then we're not going to replace it. So it's just if something is, because of its age, is getting unsafe. We had the same issue actually in Wanganui at Mosquito Point, and people that have been there, you could actually get onto a rope and swing out probably as high as this roof and drop off into the water, and it was there for years. The rope then became unsafe and the seat and everything because of the age, but we couldn't repair it back to the way it was because of all of these standards that were implemented. But we did, I think at the time they
We don't
spent...
pay Marcus Clifford, do we?
Yeah.
Oh, he's seconded to us.
Can you mute, please, Zara? We did put a lot of investment into one, which was engineered design, and then it didn't get over the water and people dropped off and broke their wrists and stuff. So the old way of just a rope hanging off was actually better, and then we over-engineer things and they still don't work. And I guess today the rope's not there. Yeah. Just a bit of insight.
Thanks, Brian. Actually, we saw an incident of that when we were on the Gold Coast at Christmas time. We were in a cafe outside looking down over a river where there was a big rope, and an 18-year-old boy let go too soon and was killed on the rocks. So that one was gone the next day, and of course the media was all full of, it's been there for years and it's never happened before, but it happened. So, yeah. The interesting thing was, though, that we had seen these lads drinking as well, so there was probably a bit of added pain. Yeah, so thank you. Thanks, Carter. Sorry, Councillor Steve.
Yes, through you, Chair. Just that acronym SLA.
Through you, Chair Alison, service level agreement. Service level agreement. Yes. Thank you, Chair Alison. Another update I'd like to highlight is the community building and the land rationalisation project. And so we are tracking really well, and we are pretty much nearly done with the disposal plans. So those disposal plans will come to council for approval, and really we are aiming to have the consultation and everything done by the end of the financial year. So hopefully we should have a really clear idea of what we are going to dispose of in consultation with the community, and we'll be ready to go by the end of the financial year.
Councillor Steve.
I just need to query one of the items on that rationalisation. I don't know if this is the right format to mention it, and that was the because I've done a lot of I've had a lot of inquiries, and that was the rural bus. Because the comment that came back to me was that the only reason that the rent level they had was that they'd never been asked for a increase. They're quite willing to pay an increase. So I'm just putting it out there that because of the way, the history behind that building, how it became and where it originally came from and how it evolved from the beginning. So I don't know where. Is that here or somewhere else? Pardon?
In her report that the final draft will be submitted at the council meeting. So I guess that's where we'll see the detail and
Thanks, Councillor Steve.
Just to add to that, it's so we will present the recommendations after consulting with the community. So we'll and it will come to council for any decision making. So I guess that's throughout the consultation is when probably things like that will be highlighted and taken into consideration. Thank you. So going down to point 6, communications. So the comms team have been extremely busy with all sorts of engagements and planning for consultations. And they've been very, very busy. So the good thing is that while they're busy, they are also learning from these busy periods, and they're putting in place processes and structures and frameworks, and to help them, keep progressing the work. And as you know, they've put in place the rules of engagement for social media, which is great. And also the engagement calendar, which is so now you can see all the engagements that have been planned, and alongside that, communication strategy for each engagement. They also have put in place their internal planning for all their own internal work program. So it's a collaborative work between the team members, and that's working really well. So they've been working really hard to achieve that. So the standard CRMs and number of notifications and good stories versus neutral and not so good, and really good to see that they've used the trailer, the Digital Spaces trailer at the Dannyverk ANP show, and hopefully that's something we'll continue to do, is using the assets that we have within community settings. Then going, sorry, Matt Tracy.
Through Chair Ellison, just a congratulations to the team on, there is a lot of engagement and work that's gone into local water done well, but also all of the others. But I know the one that's been really appreciated by the community and got shared a lot at Christmas, so I'm looking forward to seeing the next promotional series videos. They were really good, and considering we don't have an economic development arm, that actually worked really, really well. So thanks to the team for that.
Thank you, Matt Tracy. Through
you, Chair Ellison. Further to that, I noticed that Palmerston North City Council and Manawatu District Council are now using radio to a large extent, particularly on the local water done well side of things, and on other issues. But I congratulate our comms team for being really the first to use radio often, and it's been in my view, very, very effective. And it's interesting to see those other two councils jumping on the same medium now. But so well done if you could pass that on to whomsoever.
Thank you very much. I will pass it on. Carsten is here. Thank you.
Councillor Sharon.
Thanks, Chair Ellison. I have a question, Carter, around the antenna report there that you've provided. I'm no technical guru, but I love Anteno, so I'm a little disappointed to see that the number of users are actually trending down rather than up. And I have a question regarding the use of this particular software app. Are we able to benchmark against other councils as to what we should see as an acceptable or a satisfactory target of uptake? I mean, 925 doesn't sound like a lot to me, but as a percentage of our potential market, how do we compare to other councils that might be using a similar, not necessarily antenna, but the ability to use your phone and report it in? Has anyone's got their head down? No one wants to answer that one.
I may ask Carsten to answer that one, please. Thank you.
Through you, Chair Ellison. Great comment. We haven't done that, but we can certainly look into this. We have quite an active group for the comms managers of the region, and I'll certainly throw it in there and see what comes back. Great suggestion.
Well, I just think because it's so easy, well, I find it really easy to use, but we have that tool. What would be target that we might be setting ourselves to be able to up the ante on it, as it were. So it's good to see this sort of feedback, though. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor Woods. Yeah, I'd like to reiterate that. I mean, I use Anteno for all, I don't use CRM, I just use Anteno all the time. It's such a user-friendly tool, and I do promote it quite regularly on my Facebook page because I say to people, you know, it's so easy to use. You can drop a pin and show people exactly where the incident is or what's going on, and it's just brilliant. And they are responded to really quickly. So I personally really like it. So maybe it's a matter of promoting it more again, giving it another reboost. I don't know.
I know you're busy, but
No.
it's a great way to get the message out. I'll probably see that before I see an email coming out through the other system. When that beeps, I go, oh, is that what's happening? So, well done.
Thank you. Can I just say something to that, Chair Ellison? Yeah, so we have some materials around antenna promotion. There's Sam, the antenna man, that we've created, and we plan to do a bit of a campaign around it because we've got. We had some feedback from the roading teams especially. They find it extremely useful to get reports that have gone in through Anteno and that have photos and geolocations where things are. It literally saves them driving out from the Alliance to Ormondville or to wherever the thing is to have a look and assess what's needed, then go back and bring a crew in. So just by looking at the photo, they can more or less judge what they need to do. Yeah, so that's...
Councillor Sharon.
Sorry, Alison, I'm treading into an area that I'm possibly not expert on, but I would caution the promotion of Sam as the antenna man because St John's Ambulance have the same acronym for. I mean, that would obviously. So when I heard the word Sam, I was thinking that's the ambulance. They're trying to do some stuff in that with that acronym as well. So, but yeah, more promotion of it. I think it's fantastic. Thank you, Cass.
Perhaps
Thank
we
you.
could change it to CAM, so it's
Yes.
short for camera.
Yeah.
Because I always include photos because
Yeah.
it makes it so easy for them to find.
Yeah, Sam was actually an abbreviation of the Super Antenna Man. So, but we can change that.
Thank you, through you, Chair Alison. So we are down to section number 7, library. And for this section, for the library and customer services, we have Zara and Brenda online who would be able to answer any of your questions. Thank you.
So, do we have any questions on the library report? It's okay, Councillor Steve, you're forgiven. And Mike, have you got your pen up? Oh, it's there. So there are no questions? Let me see. Thank you, Brenda and Zara, for being present. I'm sorry there's no questions for you to answer, but thanks for being here.
Thank you, Chair Alison. I believe that brings us to the end of... the attachment is a case study from Comms. They did a case study because of the number of comments they received around the Freedom Campaign. So they used it as a case study just to, to pretty much analyse what's been happening, because it's been a really positive feedback, or really good mechanism to get feedback for the Freedom Campaign bylaw. Yeah, if you have any questions around that case study. So it certainly highlights the engagement, yes, and the power of social media to engage with the community. So we seem to be moving away from the traditional ways into new, more innovative ways to attract and engage with the community.
So that finalises the management report. We have a recommendation. Sorry. Oh, thank you. The recommendation, the report from group managers, moved Councillor Sharon, seconded Councillor Peter. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. So thank you very much for that report, Carter. I haven't forgotten your request, Peter, either. So you wanted to talk about the apparatus?
Yes, just briefly, I'm getting a little concerned that we're having two major pieces of equipment or apparatus removed from Fountain Square. The sort of adult swings and the climbing frame, and the climbing frame was put in part to replace the tall slide that was wrongfully removed, in my view. But that was the thing that the kids at the school wanted. I think were you involved with that? Yeah. Or whether anyway, it seems it was only put in a couple of years ago, but it's now past its use-by date, which seems odd. One would have thought it would have lasted a whole lot longer than that, given the cost of it. But I'm getting a bit worried about the replacement of both those items. Presumably the what's the name fund? Depreciation fund. Sorry, depreciation fund has covered that, and that there will be replacement like for like, or the last thing I want to see, and anybody will want to see, is some piddly-ass little miniature thing go in there for preschoolers or something. Just putting it out there.
Through you, Chair Alison. So the equipment was removed, as I can see here, on the 25th of November. And it was removed because a report was done that it had to go, and also because of the summer period coming in, I think the Christmas period, where kids are going to go to the playground and play with the playground equipment where it wasn't compliant, so it had to be removed. Now, the replacement of the equipment is through consultation with the community and the school, so I'm not sure how the consultation is going, but I know that this is a project that's been handed over to the PMO, and I know that the project manager is actively, I can say, consulting with I don't know whether it's the Woodville Community Group, I'm not sure, or whether the schools, but I know for a fact that the community, as you know, in generic term, will be consulted before anything goes there, because they really wanted to make sure whatever the replacement is going to, is pretty much what the community wants, is the message that I received.
Thanks, Peter, and thanks, Carter. Matt Tracy?
Thanks, Chair Ellison. I can probably shed a little bit of history, especially regarding removal of the slide. So that was, again, health and safety. But it did cause a great concern and discussion within the community, because there were sections of the community that really wanted that slide. And it was a great process where the school children were consulted on what the replacement equipment was, and they didn't choose the slide. So I think last night at Positively Woodville, that was raised around consultation with the school children again on what they would want. But when the climbing apparatus was chosen by those students, I would have thought that it would have had a longer lifespan than what it has. Yeah, that part is a concern, because it isn't that old. Yeah, potentially 8 years. Yeah.
Through you, Chair Alison, all I can say really is that an inspection was done on the playground by a qualified organisation in the playground area, and a report. We did have the report that's really pretty much said certain equipment needed to be removed, and that's what we went by.
Can I be assured that the people that do the inspections have no interest in selling equipment? They're not allied to, employed by, get a kickback from whatever, people selling playground equipment?
Chair Alison, I can guarantee you that it won't be the case because we really follow a very strict conflict of interest process in our procurement process, and that's not something we will, or the team or the procurement process will allow us to do.
Yeah, thank you, Carter. Yeah, they're quite emotive topics in communities too, because we've still got, it raises its head regularly on social media about our plane that disappeared out to Mangatinoka for safety reasons, and it was a smart thing to do. It was the right thing to do. The replacement, unfortunately, when you actually contract a company to make you a rotor-molded replica, you need to actually work with people who build slides to make the slide, and that's where that, unfortunately, was a real shame, because that slide had to be taken. Well, my grandkids wouldn't go. They'd go get to the top, and you'd have to climb up and bring them back down again because it was just so steep. And they haven't been able to find an alternative way of doing it. So it does rear its head every now and again as well. So yeah. Are there any further questions on that topic? There being none, so we'll. Now we've got the public. Is this public excluded? Yes. So I'll close the meeting then. So we'll close this. Oh, sorry. Move into public. Okay. Move into public excluded. Seconded by Councillor Steve. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. So that concludes today's meeting. Thank you all so much for your attendance, and again, apologies for the missing hopeful speakers we were going to have today. I'm not going to give up easily. I'm going to keep hounding them, so I haven't got much time left. Oh, I sound like I'm going to die. I haven't got much time left, but I'm determined to get a bit more information. I think it's really important that as a council, we need that relationship with these health providers. We absolutely do. And it just seems to be so fragmented now, so let's get it sorted. Thank you very much. Drive safely and mind out for the roadworks.